All right, in this video, we're gonna talk about the central place theory FRQ and go through some of the answers and go through some of the possible answers for it. All right, so there are 5 points available for this little mini FRQ. B and C were worth 2. A was worth 1. This is how the scores break down, 5 for 100. 5 points available is 100. 4 points out of 5 would be a 90. 3 points an 80, 2 points a 65, so on and so forth. The first one, identify a spatial pattern related to the distribution of Louis Vuitton stores in map A. So a lot of different good possibilities for this. Lots of people got this point. You needed to give me some sort of spatial pattern. So talking about the one that I think most people got was the first one, talking specifically about, well, they seem like Louis Vuitton stores seem like they are mostly concentrated in big urban areas, mostly in cities. If you know where cities are on the map, you can point out exactly which cities have Louis Vuitton stores and which don't. Some other general patterns that were true, more of them in the eastern half of the United States than the western half, and that makes sense from the standpoint of population density in cities, and there just being more urban areas in the eastern half. More concentrated on coastal areas than inland. So some good explanations around that and thinking about kind of the map and seeing agglomerations of coastal areas in California and the West Coast and the East Coast, and seeing the stores more likely to be there than in kind of the interior of the country. And you also could have mentioned a specific country. Sorry, also mentioned a specific region within the country. So for example, the Southeast, the Northeast, the West Coast, giving me a little bit more than just the name of the region, talking about why or talking about specific reasons or specific places was much appreciated for this. And then this last one is kind of the inverse of what we said before. Okay. All right, so the next one, identify which map shows the service that would have the higher range and threshold. Choose one, so either the idea of range or threshold, and describe why it is larger than the other map, okay? So the Louis Vuitton store is the store that has the higher range and threshold, okay? So it has it for a couple different reasons, but the biggest reason is that Louis Vuitton is just a much more specialized store, right? It's serving a very specific group of people. And within the general population of the United States, it will take more people as a whole to support a Louis Vuitton store than it would to support a Walmart, right? So that is where I think a few people had some trickiness with the idea of threshold and thinking, well, like, because there's only a small group of rich people that buy Louis Vuitton, that's like a small group of people, right? And no, we're really actually talking about how many people within a given population are needed to support the store altogether. Even though, out of that whole group, relatively few people are going to actually shop at the store, if that makes sense. So that was one of the big problems around this part of the question was a little bit of misunderstanding of the idea of threshold, which is a good thing for me to go over again. So just as we said, Louis Vuitton store is more highly specialized, require more people or geographic area to support a store. So you could have talked about that in the context of either range, which is the geographic area associated with the store, or people, which would be threshold. And then the second one, I think not as many people said this one, but I like this one. Most stores are located in big cities. People travel to obtain services. So thinking about the fact that, people probably don't buy Louis Vuitton stuff maybe as part of their daily shopping habits, but do so on a trip or do so in kind of a special location. And we'll talk about that when we get to the next slide. And then agglomeration. So many of these stores are located around other fancy stores, and they feed off of each other within kind of that part of the city, right? So either in the downtown area of cities or in retail stores or malls, but essentially, as opposed to Walmart, which generally serves smaller geographic areas. All right, and C was the tough part of the question. So this is where points were gained or lost, it seemed like. Describe one way that the central place theory might not accurately reflect the functioning of these services. So this is a tricky question because this is asking us to look at the map, synthesize what is happening with central place theory, and then think about ways in which the type of services that we see, either Walmart or Louis Vuitton or both, might not sort of be accurately reflected. The idea of central place theory might not be accurately reflected sort of in this map. So that's a tricky question. There's a lot to do with that. And I'm going to go through some of the kind of potential ways you could have answered that. So for this one, there was a breakdown between 2 points and 1 point you got 1 point for like a simple description, where you seem like you understand what the assumptions of central place theory are, and how that might not always be true in sort of the modern sense. And you got 2 points if you actually applied that really well to what we're talking about, okay? Either service or both services. So the first one I thought more people would have said this one, but you know, both Louis Vuitton and Walmart have pretty robust online operations, I think. And you know, they have customers from outside of their geographic base. So you have, you know, more competition than just one Walmart serving a geographic area or one Louis Vuitton store serving a geographic area. You have lots and lots of people using the service from all over the place. And people, because of the internet, you are not, you know, specifically confined to that geographic area. Some other things, Walmart's and really all services are based on population, right? So if there are recent shifts in population, either inward or outward, there might not be enough Walmarts to serve the general population, or there might be too many, making some locations obsolete. This next one is more specific to Louis Vuitton, but Louis Vuitton specifically serves a lot of people from outside of the region. So they, as a business strategy, seem to locate in high prestige locations like the Las Vegas Strip and the downtown city centers of places. Like I said, because people are not naturally buying Louis Vuitton on a regular basis, but rather doing it after they hit the casinos and struck gold or something. So the maps, and then we have some other answers that I added as I read yours and thought they were really good. Maps might not take into account relative wealth or culture of the geographic area, or the willingness to travel outside of the geographic area to obtain the service. So, you know, we talk about why aren't there, you know, speaking about Louis Vuitton stores, why aren't there any in this place? Well, it might not, you know, there are just more, it's more associated with the culture of LA. So there's just lots of stores there, right? And that might not have as many, you know, that might not accurately fit the population numbers as much, but because there might just be more kind of conspicuous consumption in that part of the country than in other parts. Let's see. So the next one, it is a common theme of central place theory that we have the flat isotropic plane. To get the points for this, you actually had to give me a detailed description of how this applied to the map. So I needed to see some actual reasoning for the map. And then the last one, not a whole lot of people said, but I think is worthwhile to think about: similar services competing in the same geographic space. So, you know, we got the amount of Walmarts, but we don't have the amount of Targets. So if there's all sorts of Targets in an area, it might not make sense for Walmart to open there, even if it kind of does make sense from a pure number standpoint in terms of population. All right, thanks. Bye.